And so just as the president puts the finishing touches on tonight's State of the Union, explosive accusations today at the trial of Vice President Dick Cheney's former chief of staff. The most incendiary, a defense attorney claiming that top Cheney aide Louis Scooter Libby was sacrificed to save top Bush aide Karl Rove. Jonathan Alter has been following the Libby trial very closely for Newsweek and joins us now. Thank you, Jonathan.
Thanks, Chris. This is just an amazing series of developments. I think everybody kind of expected, that this was sort of receding into the past. Nobody cares that much about Scooter Libby out in the rest of the country. But it turns out that we're turning over a rock on the office of the vice president.
And in fact, the lawyer for Scooter Libby said that Karl Rove was protected because, and I'm quoting here, his fate was important to the Republican Party. What kind of repercussions might that have, Jonathan?
Well, if the president and Karl Rove and the vice president were higher in public standing, it would drive their numbers down. But they're already down in Nixon land in terms of their ratings. Nixon at the bottom of Watergate. So I'm not sure that this will drive them any further down in the polls. But what it does do is it gives historians and people trying to get a sense of what actually took place in the run-up to this war. It gives them a more complete picture of how hands-on the vice president was in and how political he was and the White House was in trying to discredit Joe Wilson and using the identity of his wife as a former CIA agent. In doing this, Chris, people lose their security clearances for a lot less than this, for talking out of school about who is or who is not in the CIA. Even if there were no laws violated and if there, nothing of a legal nature even comes out of this trial, you have a full acquittal and various arguments are discredited, we still have the irreducible fact that Dick Cheney was apparently the author of this deed.
Well, the defense attorney alleges that Libby was forced to, again, he used very colorful language today, stick his neck in a meat grinder to save Karl Rove. Of course, Libby was the vice president's top man. These guys are supposed to be good foot soldiers. Do you think the White House had any inkling, Jonathan? Did they know that the Libby team was planning to go after them in this way at trial?
Well, it certainly hasn't come out before that. There haven't been any leaks out of the defense indicating this, or out of Paul Weiss, the law firm that is involved here, and so I'm not sure whether the White House got any advance word on it, but I would tend to doubt it.
And I wonder, what it's got to be like inside 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. It seems like every day brings one or two terrible pieces of news, whether it's an escalation in casualties in Iraq, whether it's another key Republican coming out publicly against the president. Today, what's going on with Karl Rove and Scooter Libby. How might this impact, even if the president gives a great speech tonight, and there does seem to be some momentum on his domestic agenda, could this have an effect on it?
Well, I'm not so sure whether the Libby trial will have an effect on the domestic agenda, but the overall climate is one of a greatly weakened president. I asked Harry Reid yesterday whether there was any precedent for a presidential campaign overshadowing a State of the Union address in this fashion, in his experience, long experience in Washington. And he said, no, never. I mean, a lot of Americans have kind of almost turned the page. They're looking forward to the next administration. It's an indication of how almost irrelevant this White House is becoming. The reason that you can't use that word, though, is because there is a war underway. So that will continue to hang over this more, I think, than the Libby trial or any of the domestic issues.
All right. Thanks very much, Jonathan. Always a pleasure.
Thanks a lot, Chris.